Hello, I'm Abhishek, also known as ABC, and today I'm going to talk about how to use GPT in the context of data engineering. Is there any application where you can already use GPT around the area of data engineering? What can be automated and what can be done as of now? First, I personally believe GPT can be used for many activities, in the sense not only with the Chat GPT, with various different LLM models can solve particular problems in data engineering, and it can automate. It can help us to do more work. So, for example, let's start with the very basic principle, which is already quite widely used. Many are trying to use it. Is SQL, text to SQL, SQL code. GPT-4 specifically quite a generates pretty good SQL, which you can directly run on top of Snowflake or any other data warehouse wherever you want, if you can explain the question well to the GPT engine. So if you go to the chat GPT and say, get me, write an inner join between two table with some other function, with some condition, it will write to you. But if you can explain chat GPT that this is how your schema looks like, this is the table relationship or the data modeling, and then you really ask a business question, it really generates pretty good query, which you can directly run on top of your data warehouse or database and get that contextual answer. There are few problems in that how can you explain that, like how will you tell an AI system that these are the list of my tables, this is connected to this and that. So there are multiple ways to do it. So I tried, for example, using SQL Alchemy to get the dialects out of the table info, and I give this information to GPT that this is my table looks like, these are the columns in the table, these are my row look like. So I just feed GPT with some information on the row side, and then I started asking questions. What I realized that for basic query like finding the count, aggregation of basic group by, it worked decent. It generated good query, and I directly ran on top of my data warehouse. But things started going bit complicated when I asked that GPT do something more complicated, like I'm trying to find certain particular patient criteria on the database where I said the patient should have this particular conditions and this and this and this. And then the queries were absolutely wrong. Why it happened is because if your table has a very logical column name, in that context, GPT can generate pretty good result. But if a column says, for example, event name, but that is nothing but actually an identifier. For example, in my case, if I'm talking about patient and I'm talking about treatment, so maybe event name is nothing but the treatment name. But and I asked the question that tell me the treatment plan this patient is going on, and it will try to look for treatment, something around treatment, but there's nothing like that. There's an event, and that's where you will find it is not able to generate a logical good query. Even for normal engineers, if we don't go and read the data model, we get sometimes confused that what does it mean? How can this be relayed? And these are such essential things which you need to tell GPT that this is this particular context mean. So the providing contextual information to gather this kind of evidence can really help you to generate a very good query which you can directly run on top of data warehouse. You can even engineer it to generate the query, directly run, get you directly final result. So as a business user, you just get the result and you don't care that what the query ran. But that needs a significant level of confidence on whatever the query getting generated. And as of now, I think that needs engineering. So, for example, when I was building this pipeline of using technologies like LangChain, I realized that whatever the query it is generating, it is not enough. and I had a limit on the context length. We know it doesn't support unlimited context length. So it is good that if you can add more and more informations, like if you give a paragraph of contextual information of your table and schema, and then you can hope it will work properly. But that is not the case, at least as of now. And if you try to use GPT-4 with 38,000 contexts and 32,000 contexts, those are very expensive. So you need to find a balance that somehow you add this context intelligently and GPT understand it. So what I needed to do is I need to create my own custom agent, which will get this query. And then I started adding correction on top of it. So you can imagine that I created a rule which will check for a certain kind of query. No, this seems to be wrong. Regenerate the query. So it again goes to the GPT engine and get a new query with some changes in the context. And don't do next time this. And over the time, I started collecting problems. What are the pitfalls? Where it failed? And then in the main system context, I went and changed. I said, next time follow this, follow this, follow this, and then generate it. But this is a very prototype driven. It is not a production use that I directly go and production, I get the number. No, it is a prototype which users are using. They're all trying. Whenever they're finding it flaw, so they gives a dislike, and then we get an alert that okay, these are the problem. This query is not doing what it's intended to. So that is one place where I'm seeing massive improvement is happening. So you can literally, if you get a price, a reasonable price on a contest, then you need not to do so much engineering. You can actually give enough information to give you a right query in the first step. That's one thing where I see you can use. If that is a problem, you can still use it to find some queries. So if you're a business user and you know the condition, but you don't know what is the query, you can ask GPT that these are the scenario. This is my this table and this table. Get uh, help me to get a query to find this answer. Most of the time, sorry, not most, 70% of the time, the queries are reasonably good. You can directly run them. And if you have information on SQL, you were well versed with SQL maybe for 2 years back, and now you are not in touch directly with the SQL. So you can already see the SQL make some tiny adjustment, and that query is good. So that way, even for directly non-technical user, already they can use GPT to help. Another place I find it help is while working with testing data, generating information, uh, anything to do with mocking things. So when we get to work with the large data, for example, Spark, we have a very large data frame and we are trying to do something, we are transforming data. If you want to try it and you want to do something on the small cut of the data so that you engineer that thing, you debug something, you need to create a temporary table, a data frame, and then this you define certain things. Usually I have my own stuff in my copy every time whenever I need to do, and sometimes you need to create a tricky column types like array type, struct type. These things GPT can already do for you. You can already ask that create a data frame with array type, with struct type, or any complex data type. Insert 5 certain rows and give you data frame. So you got the data frame directly, and you can already use it to do your transformation. So it it help you as a coding assistant, and that is the line we are slowly going. That like GitHub Copilot, Replit, all are actually coding assistants, and I can already tell you that they are very helpful. I mean, they are not replacing us as a software engineer or data engineer. They just help you to fully complete your code or function. So when you're writing some generic function that uh, like finding prime, yeah, you know how to do it, but maybe you need to do Google. So rather than Google, you can write over there, add a prime number function with some condition, and it does for you. Same with any basic functions which you are confident or which are not very complicated. This coding assistant can already generate for you, and you can use them. Why I say that it is not for complicated function? Because sometimes some functions are very large, it generates, and maybe not always, it is not always accurate. And those turn out to be more frustrating and complicated to understand and to debug rather than solving the problem. So I won't recommend it to use for very complicated function as a coding assistant. But if you can break this function in the smaller step and then you ask the coding assistants, then it is much more helpful. So that is another area GPT kind of technologies are already helping. An area where I'm using GPT heavily is, or regularly, is the command line. So Kubernetes needs quite a lot of command line. There's the kubectl thing where you need to find pods, you need to delete, find the services, get the logs with a particular pod name, deployments running, when it was running, when it started. All these things you need to ask when you use it Kubernetes. And a small application I build is to talk to GPT to generate those commands and just get me the answers. So I just made sure that it does not delete any pod. It does not purge anything if I suddenly ask it to. But I but rest of the querying and getting answers are 90% of the time is accurate. And that saves quite a lot of time, because what I'm thinking that what are the pods with this name, uh, even if I try several times, I usually go to Google and find the answer, or I create my script as shortcut script and I just so k find pod something like that. But now I don't do that. I just write them and I get the answer instantly from my Kubernetes cluster. So this is area where I realized that I can use GPT further. I can use it for any Linux command on MacBook using GPT and act as actionable and or to get answers quickly. And those are, I would say, a very general use cases for any software engineer. So trying to use anything on the command line, I would say you can already use GPT. And another interesting area where I'm using GPT or I'm finding GPT helpful is writing documentations. So this is, uh, I find it easier for me when I'm lacking documentation or I'm reviewing some code which or some reading some code which I don't understand properly, or I would like it to get it documented. So I can publish a snippet to GPT and ask it to write documentation, and it does pretty good job in most of the cases, unless the function are very complicated. Another places is like generating test cases. So I like to write a lot of test cases, but edge cases are sometimes a mess. And you can actually ask GPT to generate test cases, edge cases. They are pretty smart. Like GPT actually generate very interesting, exhaustive list of edge cases, which you can add in your test suite uh, already with for Python functions. I tried for Python function and they are pretty good. Disclaimer, you need to understand that some codes you are not supposed to copy paste on the chat engine. So you need to be careful about those things because they're dangerous. If they're not supposed to be shared, then don't use GPT and don't paste your function directly and ask it to generate an answer. That is one area where GPT is already handy and helpful. Other area where I'm already seeing it can be helpful is configuration, like CI/CDs. And if you work with data analysts and not directly software engineering background, it can create problem for them to use, and they need to learn. There's a learning curve required for CI/CD. And GPT generates a pretty good CI/CD pipelines. Like you can, and so you are actually enabling any non-engineers to already you build a CI/CD on the pipeline and or generate a Docker or generate a GitHub Actions. So these things GPT does pretty well, and these things are actually not directly going to create a problem because these are YAML file. When you execute, it will fail, and but it won't break anything. You're just trying and testing, and then you can fix certain bug if you have seen them. But they generate pretty good YAML scripts for Kubernetes or CI/CD, GitHub Actions. Another area is where I find it does a pretty good job is trying to explain a complex topic. So if I'm going through any complicated topic which needs more understanding, in-depth understanding or references, I actually go to GPT and ask for GPT references right now. I mean, Google can do those things, but GPT gives you a very summarized and collective answers from different resources. But I won't say it is accurate 100% of the time. I think even some basic things, basic question answering sometimes give some answers which makes no sense. So careful about using any large language model. They're language models, so sometimes the generated output are designed as a very confident answers, but those are not accurate. So use them, but use them very carefully what when you are using GPT already as an application. And it is not necessary that you will always have to use chat GPT. There are GPT for all and other free models which you can already use without any cost. So, but the performance and answers are, yeah, these are different, but it depends which domain you're using them. Getting on the tech side, they all are good. Going on the code side, I will still say GPT performs the best. One interesting area I'm finding GPT can be useful around the data engineering stack is using natural text for everything. So, for example, we have Pandas AI, which is designed to use pandas as a natural text. Snowflake GPT, which you can use again with the natural text to get the answer. As I said about kubectl GPT. So, if you see the entire stack and you start building this application which works with the natural text, so and then you connect as one package so that you create one agent which understand it all, and based on your conversation it sync with different technology and give you the answer that uh, it's like a full stack GPT with different tech. Personally aware that some are already working around that, where they're assembling all the stack together and creating a common agent where for end user it is one GPT, but behind the scenes just talking to different technology, open source technology people are building, and then you got directly get the answer. So it's a data engineering GPT stack which you can already use and get the inside and number. One common question is, do we need to have a paid subscription to use GPT as a service, and how expensive will it be? So I would say it is not uh, required all the time. So yeah, ChatGPT is one of the best performing model, but there are free model which you can already use, and they are relatively decent, like Llama, GPT for all, Free GPT, Alpha, and there are many such models are already coming up, which are actually free to use. You need not pay anything, and there are certain model you can actually train by yourself, like Dolly, which Database provided an example, which you can actually take a specific set of training data and train for your particular need or your particular team's need. So private GPT is a thing, and it is already easy to build. So not easy. I would say there are already many tech stack available which you can use to build and train this model cheaply and then use it. The main advantage of having this is data security, privacy, and sometimes some domains are not very well perceived by GPT. So for those particular scenario, you anyway need to fine tune them, and the cheapest way is always the best way, the simple and the best way. And for another very useful or well-known area where GPT is already shining is domain-specific knowledge. So if you are from any particular domain like healthcare, agriculture, or any particular specific domain, and if you can create your own agent tools and prompts for this domain, you can create an application which will be very useful for non-technical users. So they are not uh, very they're already helpful for many users if you create a domain oriented LLM models on top of GPT like chat GPT or any other uh, paid services or unpaid, whatever way you want, and then you fine tune them with your own data set. So, for example, GPT does not understand about a technology. You can actually fine tune them, explain them this is what it does. And once you fine tune them, then you can create your own tool agent and custom agent around this particular ecosystem. And then you can help, you can deploy that as a service so that other non technical user, even technical user, can directly use GPT to get those insights from there. Uh, these things need well crafted data, clean training data, which you can use to fine tune them. So fine tuning GPT is a very different work. So if you gather any data and just learn about it, GPT does not work well, even with any model. So I'm not talking about training the entire LLM. It is mostly about optimizing the GPT for for a particular problem dimension and focus on that. So that's the area I think personally will grow for data engineering aspect of it. So, for example, uh, we can have a data engineering GPT which is trained on a particular set of uh, particles, which is designed to work for particular question answer for particular set of technology data or data engine stack like Spark, Kafka, Airflow, Prefect, DAX, or whatever. All those stack are so all this particular generative model is designed for data engineering aspect of it. So I personally feel that future will eventually will go that side where there will be more and more uh, domain oriented submodel, or you can say AI chain or something like that, which is specific. Like it's like a module. If you want to talk around data engineering, then you have this particular LLM submodule which you can use to talk around there. So this does not need full-fledged training, but more about fine-tuning or maybe a small training set which you can apply somehow, and this model will start learning. So I personally feel that way future might go, and that will be helpful. That if you could do something domain-oriented, because it is so broad that having something customized for your need is much more helpful. Okay. So now one of the very important questions: is it ready yet? Can you already use large language models for your direct use cases, or is it already solving the problems? I must say this question is hard to answer for, or I would say this is not a straightforward question. Now, the most important question: can you already use large language models for your day-to-day activities for any data engineering job? I would say yes and no. So a lot of things in GPT or Chat GPT or in large language model is already ready. So like getting coding assistance, programming assistance, understanding something which is not some basic functions. As I mentioned about documentation, so a few things are ready, but not everything. If you want to use it for any real production use cases where you want to integrate uh, it for automations of certain part of your job, like your dashboard updates. So now you build dashboards, but maybe in future you want to use natural text to just get the numbers. So this will give you the number, but they are not accurate all the time. And certain dashboards are very, very important for accuracy. So if you want to get a crunch some number or some analytics on top, I will still say you can use it for staging or testing environment, find the loopholes, see what prompt worked, what didn't work, why it didn't work, how can you optimize the prompt, and then maybe it will serve in next 1 and a half year. It will be able to automate some of the replace some of the dashboards, but basic dashboard. If it is very mission critical dashboards where the revenue numbers are very important for some activities, I will not say it is not going to be easy. That needs a lot of domain understanding, and then work with different language models to make it better. For programming assistance use cases, I must say you can already use it. You need not to wait. You can already really use programming assistance and ease your life. Writing functions, having idea, then you explain that to this assistant and get things your class already written for you with the complete stub values and basic layout of a class, object declaration. All these things are done by Copilot and different large model technologies pretty well. So that place, I would say, it is ready. You can already use it. Is it 100% ready? No, it is not. But we don't need 100% ready. We are not talking about replacing engineers here. We're talking about helping engineer to do the things faster and more accurately and able to do more work. So if you can cover more ground in your own time with the help of technology, this is the exact piece which you can use it. Now, how can you achieve more from large language models? Goes back to the discussion of prompt engineering or fine tuning or build your own model. That they all these have its own application or its own advantage and disadvantage. So when it comes to the prompt engineering, the very first thing when it comes to large language model comes is you optimize the prompt. So rather than jumping to tuning and training your model, if you can just optimize the prompt, then it makes your life much easier. If you can somehow feed information to this language models using text and then say now get better, then that is going to be the easiest thing even to tune the model, even to teach model that some more things about it. And rewriting prompt, optimizing prompt, it's much easier compared to tune them or build the model. Fine tuning is a space I will say it is still hard. Even I couldn't manage to achieve fine tuning for everything. It needs computation resources. There's of course some ways to do this thing cheaply, but they are not very easy to do. It is not like fine tuning is a very standard approach which you can already use and fine tune things and make domain oriented design for this. That is not happening, or that is not there yet. Training your entire model, I must say it is out of scope. Like it's need large computation power, huge domain knowledge and data. So I think I'm not at all considering that, or I would say don't even go there at least for now. In the data engineering space, the main thing is try to understand what kind of applications can be useful, which is not out there, and then try to build it using different tech stack and already explore it, already see what is missing, what is the gap, how can I tune it, what is, and most important part is if something is not working, record it so that you can, with the human eye, human in the middle, can understand the problem definition and make it better, make it more mature, and maybe your large language model will understand this ecosystem way better than any other thing you've understand. So that is where data engineering for that is where I must say, that is the thing about GPT for data engineering. It is good. It can partially help you. It is getting towards the direction where it is going to help you significantly. My personal opinion is that GPT or large language model is going to automate most of the data engineering work. Most definition is maybe 60-70% will be automated or will be replaced by GPT, and we will be doing something different. We will be doing more complex work, and that shouldn't, my prediction is maybe next 3 years this will change significantly. I may be wrong, but I personally believe that that will happen in 3 years. Things will change. Lot of things will be onboarded to large language model, and we will be focused on something else. So with that, I want to thank you all for listening, and you can ask a question in the chat, or you can reach me out in LinkedIn or Twitter. And thank you very much.